Welcome to Gospel Worship Academy. Today we'll go over how to apply inversions in our playing. So today's tutorial will be in the key of C major, and let's quickly review that. Okay, so this is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 1. So today's tutorial will be part 2 on our inversion lesson, and today we'll focus more on applying inversions to our playing to help make it a lot more streamlined and to make it easier to give us many more options, as we'll see today. Okay, so right now we know that we should be able to play inversions for all 7 chords. So each chord of the major scale, 1 through 7, you can play each chord 3 different ways, right? So each chord can be played in the root position, the first inversion, and the second inversion. Okay, so how will that look like? So that will look like this. So for C major, our 1 chord, this is the root position, first inversion, second inversion, and back to root. For D minor, this is the root position, first inversion, second inversion, back home to the D minor. E minor, or 3 chord here, this is the root position, first inversion, second inversion, and back home. For the F major chord, this is root position, first inversion, second inversion, and back home to the root position. For the G major chord, this is the root position here, first inversion, second inversion, back to the root position of the G major chord. For A minor, this is the root position, first inversion, second inversion, back to root. For the B diminished chord, this is the root position, first inversion, second inversion, back to the root position. And then we're back home at C major, first inversion, second inversion, back. Okay. All right. So why is that exercise there important to be able to do? Okay. So the reason is, again, inversions help give us many options. So instead of playing the C major chord in just the root position only one way, we have 3 different ways we can play it, right? To give us different sound options, right? So it would sound like this on the 1 chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. And now let's switch it to the first inversion. Okay. Second inversion. Okay. Back to the root position. And as you see there, we can even go through all 3 different positions just to give it a little bit more interest. Okay. Now, another way to utilize inversions is to be able to use it when we're changing from one chord to a different chord so that we have smooth transitions, smooth movements in the chord movements. Okay. So how will that look like? So for example, if we're going from the 1 chord to the 4 chord, we don't want to jump, always from root position to root position. So in other words, we don't want to jump from the 1 C major chord and then move our thumb all the way to the F to play it like this. This is not an efficient way to play that. So there's a more efficient way, as you can see here, by using inversions. So here's the example using inversions. So C major, and then 4 major, this is the second inversion, right? So and how do we figure that out, right? So through our inversions here, this is the root position of the F major chord, first inversion, second inversion, okay? So that's how we knew that when we're in this root position of the C major chord, we can use this inversion, the second inversion of the F major chord, to have smooth movements between the 1 and 4 chord. Okay, now how do we also have smooth movements when we want to go from the 1 chord to the 5 chord when we are in the root position of the C chord? So from C major here to G major here, we don't want to take that big jump if we don't have to, when we can do C major, first inversion, okay, of the G major chord. And again, we figured this out by going through the inversions in the G major chord. To root position, first inversion, there we go. And then second inversion here, etc. And back to the root of the G major chord. So the key thing I want us to really focus on here is to be able to find our 1-4-5 chords and their inversions in each position of the one chord. Okay, so in other words, whenever we're in the root position of the one chord, we need to figure out the remaining 1-4-5 chords that are around this root position of the C major chord. So in other words, we'll use this inversion of the one chord, the root position. And then for our 4 chord, what would be the 4 chord that we would use in this position without jumping to play it like this? So instead of jumping, which inversion can we use here? All right, so to be able to do that, we need to figure out which of our fingers that are down, which one is closest to the F note. Okay, so hopefully here you said it is your middle finger. So that's why we would use this inversion position here, because it's the closest to the F note. All right, now when we look at our fingers again, which of our fingers is closest to the G note, the 5? Okay, so hopefully you stated here that the pinky is already on the 5. So which inversion position can we use of the 5 chord, the G major chord, can we use to play a 5 chord without jumping? So that would be this inversion here, first inversion. Okay, so instead of playing our chords by jumping all over the keys like this, 1 and then 4, jumping again to 5. So instead of playing it like this, you can play it like this with inversions. 1, 4, 5, back to 1. Okay. All right. So now we've identified all of our 1-4-5 chords and inversions in their root position of the C major chord, of the 1 chord. So now we'll move on to the first inversion position of the 1 chord of the C major chord. Okay, so now that we're in the C major first inversion position, we want to figure out our 1-4-5 chord inversion shapes that we can use to play 1-4-5 without jumping around. Okay, so to do that, we need to again look at our fingers that are down and which fingers are closest. So for example, we already have a 1 chord shape here, so we can just keep this inversion. Okay, now to figure out the 4 chord, we're going to look at our fingers that are down and figure out which fingers are closest to F, the F note or the 4. Okay, so hopefully you stated your thumb is closest to F. And then also which inversion shape uses the thumb to play the root of the F major chord. It would be this shape here. Great. So our root position of the F major chord. So back to C major here. Okay. Now to figure out our 5 or G major chord, we'll look again at our fingers that are down and figure out which finger is closest to the G note. Okay. So hopefully you stated that the index finger, our pointer here, is actually on the 5, the G note. So which inversion shape can we use here for the G major chord? Okay, so hopefully you stated that you could use this inversion shape. Okay. And then later on, once you get used to this shape here, playing the root of it, G, with your middle finger. Once you get used to that, because that's usually like a good best practice to start out with this fingering, 1, 3, 5. That way you don't strain your wrist and your fingers as much. And once you're used to this position, later on you can try it with the pointer like this. But for now, we'll intentionally use the 1, 3, 5 shape here. So that is our second inversion of the G major chord here. Okay. So in other words, here's a quick review again. In the first inversion position of the C major chord, okay, this is the 1 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord, 1 again. Let's play along with it again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. So now we'll move to the second inversion position of the C major chord. Okay. So this would be the inversion shape we will use whenever we're playing the second inversion of the C major chord. And so now we already have our 1 chord for this position. So now the next thing to figure out is how do we play our 1, 4, 5 when we're in this position of the 1 chord. Okay, so already we have the 1 chord shape here, so we can use that in second inversion. So to figure out the 4 chord inversion, we'll again look at our fingers that are down and figure out which of our fingers is closest to F in order to figure out our 4 chord. Okay, so hopefully here you stated that the pinky is closest to F. So that's why we'll use this inversion position here to play the 4 chord. And then we go back to the 1 chord. Okay, and we'll again look at our fingers to see which of our fingers that are currently down is closest to the G note or is on the G note. Okay, so hopefully you saw that our thumb is already on the G note here. And which inversion of the G major has the thumb on the root G? Okay, so it would be this shape here. Right, so this is how you would play the 5 chord whenever we're in this position of the 1 chord. So whenever we are in second inversion position of the 1 chord, we can use this shape here of the 5 chord to play our inversion of the 5 chord. So 1, 4, 5 will look like this. So when we're in second inversion of the C major chord, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. Again, let's do that again. So 1 chord here, 4 chord here, 5 chord here, back to 1, and we'll go to the root now. 1, we're going to 4, 5, back to 1. That's the root position. We're going to first inversion of the 1 chord. 4, 5, back to 1. Let's do that again. In first inversion, 1, 4, 5, 1. Okay, great. So now we know how to play our 1, 4, 5 chords in any inversion of the 1 chord. So whether we're in our root position of the C major chord, or in the first inversion of the C major chord, or in the second inversion of the C major chord, we can always play all of our 1, 4, 5 chords. So why is that important? So another reason why we should be able to play our 1, 4, 5 chords in any position of the C major chord is that it allows us to follow the melody easily and to play the appropriate chord wherever the melody is. Okay, so how does that look like? Let's take a look. Okay, here we're going to use a very simple song here as a demonstration, just to show how we can use chords to follow the melody, to harmonize the song, to make it nicer. Okay, so we're going to play a basic form of the melody for Twinkle Twinkle Little Stars. Okay, so that's just a basic form of the melody. And then now we'll do the same melody, but we're going to use our chord inversions to help harmonize the melody notes that we just played to make it a nicer arrangement, as we'll see here. This would be a great example of why we need to learn inversions so that we can utilize it to even help us to play melody and to help harmonize the melody that we're playing. Okay, so hopefully you noticed that I was using inversions pretty much on every melody note here. So here we'll follow the melody notes and then see what chords we can use to help harmonize these chords. So the melody starts on the 1, so we use the 1 chord here. Jumps to a 5, so we can use the 1 chord here. And then it jumps to a 6, so you use a 4 here, 4 chord, second inversion. Back to 1, so back to the 1 chord since the melody is on the 5. And then we'll use the 4 chord here in first inversion. And since the melody is on a 3, we'll use the second inversion of the 1 chord here. Melody note is 2, so we use the 5 chord here. Okay. And then it jumps to 5 as the melody. Let's do that again. So melody's on a 4, 3 here. So we use the 1 chord. Okay. Great. So we just went through this example here to also show how we can use chord inversions to help harmonize the melody of a song, to help give it a nice arrangement. If you definitely like this tutorial on inversions, definitely remember to also like and subscribe and be on the lookout for more tutorials coming your way.